Your story matters, don't let it fade. When everything changed, you were made.
Hey everyone, this is Wendy Babcock back with the One Stories podcast. And today I have Kathy Collins with me, who is part of the June 2025 One Stories. Welcome, Kathy.
Hi, Wendy. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so what I love is you and I came to meet because of another podcast, which is really cool. So before we dive into that, let's tell everyone a little bit about who you are. Do you want to just share a little bit of who Kathy is?
Well, first off, I am retired from the corporate business world. And in that time after, I became a hospital chaplain due to quite a journey that I had. And I wrote a book about it called The Mystic Chaplain, My Story. And now I seem to be on my third active life and hoping to get out and talk to people about the beauty of what's all around us and how we are all one and can help each other.
I love it. And it's such a great book. I already started reading it. I don't get a ton of time, but I already dove into your book. Dived in? What's the word there? I'm reading the book, right? So let's do this. So with One Stories, right? So how did you find me? How did you find One Stories and get into this?
Well, I was asked to do a podcast by someone else who I had been with as a hospital chaplain when her father passed. And she called and asked if I would do this. And I said, well, can you send me some links so I can listen to what your background is for the people that you have. And she sent me the list. And when I went down the list, I just picked a name out and it was yours. I had no idea who you were. I listened to it. And you also were going to be having a upcoming conference with Warrior Amplified. Mm-hmm. And the name Warrior was quite profound for me because I had been told recently that I would become a spiritual warrior. Wow. And so I reached out to you. And because of that, I found out about One Stories. And the rest is history. Yeah. I mean, you took me on along with some other brave ladies, and here we are.
Yeah, it's a synchronicity at work. And there's more behind the scenes and people have to listen to your talk and then watch some of the interviews from the live event to hear more about how everything kind of came full circle. But let's talk a little bit about your when moment. So tell us briefly, we don't want to give everything away because we are going to play Kathy's when story after this interview, but give us a little briefing about what your when moment was.
Okay. My when story was rooted in the 2010 time when I found myself at a seminar with a grief expert by the name of David Kessler. And it really threw me a curveball. I honestly didn't know what to expect at that seminar because I was there to really just get his book. But his words and the stories that I heard changed everything for me. I discovered how powerful it was to simply listen and really be present for people, and then to walk alongside others through change, loss, and healing, and to remind them they aren't alone.
Wow. Yeah, it's quite the moment. And it sparked for me listening to your story, just remembering like an experience that I had as a child with a near-death experience. And so it was fascinating to hear yours and how it all unfolded for you and how you shared on the stage. So when you enrolled with One Stories, of course, we do the talk development, which I need to change that. It's more story development because this is not a talk, right? It's storytelling. Mm-hmm. So in the story development, what was that transformation like for you? Uncovering the full story and getting on stage and all the different pieces so far.
It brought out even more than originally for me. And I really went deep into my heart because even when we were practicing, I broke into tears and I didn't know where they came from. They came so quickly. Yeah. But it touched something inside of me that went deeper than originally when it all happened. So just going back into it, more reflection, mm-hmm. More understanding of that I made the right decision to do what I'm doing. And I know that more people need to understand this and to know that we're okay. We're not to be fearful and not to self-doubt ourselves so that we can move forward.
I love that. And especially as you work as a chaplain now, with everything that you've done as a chaplain, How has that changed your perspective, the experiences that you had that led you into chaplaincy? How has that played into that role?
How it's changed me.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to understand the importance of just being with someone and listening, not having to talk to them about anything. I hold a space for them. And I believe I've learned to be more than just a chaplain. I've learned to be a guide to help them through things.
Yeah.
Stop right there because I'm losing my,
That's okay. Yeah, we'll pause.
because I'm kind of saying what I wanted. Are you going to ask that transformation question?
Yeah, we can do that. So let me pull it up so I give you exactly the question itself. So I hit the right thing for you. Yeah. So it just is what did you learn or what transformation did you have? So
Okay,
we'll
I'll go
go
for it.
from, the chaplain and what you learned. Obviously you had the NDE, then you went into being a chaplain, and how did that change? Basically, and you already kind of answered that, how you interact with patients and letting them know there's something on the other side. So then, what did you learn or what transformation did you have going through the one stories?
My transformation came from fear of sharing my story and speaking my truth. And when I was able to speak the truth, a huge shift occurred. Then the fear and self-doubt disappeared, and I was able to move forward from simply servicing others to truly being present with them. And I just didn't grow as a chaplain. I became a guide holding space for others while staying grounded with an open heart and a deep respect for their stories. And I always think of a saying by Carl Gustav Jung, which really stayed with me from the very beginning of becoming a chaplain. He who looks outward is dreaming, and he who looks inward is awakened. And I
Ooh,
feel that's my story. I was
yeah.
awakened.
Oh, I feel that. I love that. That's such a great quote. And that's, brings a lot of things to mind around that. Wow. So you have your book, The Mystic Chaplain. What was writing that like? Was that scary? Because you're telling your story in that book too. Obviously it's different than being on a stage, but how was the process of writing that book?
Um, Heart-wrenching. I
Mm.
had many days in my chair where I cried.
Aw.
I questioned myself, should I put it in? Should I leave it out? And then I thought, no, if it happened to me, it's happened to someone else. And if I just touch one person in this world, then putting it out there is worth it. And I think that's in anything we do in life. If we are not going to be open and share things and help each other, we can't move forward. And the book itself, when it progressed, um, I really had some exciting times with it.
Yeah.
I never even had to find a publisher.
Oh.
I was in a restaurant with someone and I was talking about an event that happened. And a man that was sitting in a booth behind us got up and was going to leave, walked past us and stopped. And he asked, who's talking about cancer? I said, I was. And he said, and who's writing the book? I said, I am. He said, well, I'm an author and a writer. And let me help you. He contacted the publisher and I met the publisher. And the process is usually you'll give a couple chapters to them and they'll decide whether they're going to take you or not. They didn't even want to take the chapters. They took
Wow.
the book as is. I mean, that just doesn't happen.
No.
So I always felt it needs to be out there somehow, some way, and how it's going to affect people. I wish I could tell, but that's the thing, the beauty of life too. Even as a chaplain, we see a patient and we may never see them again, and we don't know how we affected them, but we're not supposed to know.
Yeah.
We'll just let the other side take care of that.
Right. And the fact that you came into people's lives and made an impact and you were supposed to be the chaplain that they specifically saw. We've talked about alignment and how things happen for a reason. Just like you were, there for, Erica, which is the other podcast that I was on that you heard my episode. You were there for her dad. It was meant to be.
And it wasn't a night that I normally work. I only work
Right.
on Monday nights, and this was a Thursday night. But I always tell I'm in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, for exactly who needed you there, because
Yeah,
she needed that, her dad needed that, because he thought it
yeah,
was just nothing on the other side,
yeah.
you know? And so if they needed a sign, that you were it.
It's fun when you start to see it and
Hmm.
understand it. It's exciting.
Yeah,
At
and how
first, it
things,
can be a little overwhelming because you're not
mhm.
sure what's happening. But I've never had anything that totally frightened me in
Oh,
any of my experiences. They were always peaceful and loving. So
wow,
I've been grateful for that.
that's awesome. So things that are a little scary and a little frightening. So what's going to happen for you in the future? You know, where does all this take you? 'Cause, you know, you and I have talked before the podcast about you see yourself doing more speaking, impacting more lives, and you know, what do you think that might look like if you just had to kind of imagine what it might be?
Oh, I want to open up so many hearts.
Yeah.
um, Over a year ago, I had a knowing that this was going to happen. And again, I just don't know how it will develop or whatever. And of course, you were in line with that name that I picked out on the podcast. And the journey is here, and you've molded all of us in this group that we got together with for the When Speaking event. And it's been a ride of a lifetime for me. I can't thank you enough, Wendy, for
Wow.
that. And to get up there. And I thought if I can just touch, like I said, one person, it'll all be worth it. And I really want to move out and go beyond that because I mentioned David Kessler as that grief counselor. In the last 2 years, I worked with him for 6 months and became a grief educator. So our lives crossed again. So there's things that people need to know how we are approaching grief in a rough world that we're in right now and
Yeah.
lots of changes. And I think it's going to be important that people understand how they can cope and move through all of this.
Right. And it's been fun for me just to see the transformation since the moment I met you, to get you being on the stage and now saying I'm going to step into this. Whatever is meant to be is going to unfold. And just kind of being a spectator, that's really cool. You know, I mean, yeah, I'm a piece of the puzzle, you know, but that's just it. And I consider myself a spectator for all of you that took on that stage. And your group specifically, I mean, all the groups are close knit, but there's something even a little bit more different about this group that went through. It was a little bit smaller group too, but like I don't know how to explain it. It was so tight knit and so aligned, even on spiritual level. I think we all felt that,
Mhm.
you know.
And
Um,
I
go
thought
ahead.
I'd be the odd man out, for what the story I was going to tell. And I
Hmm.
think a lot of them realized they could speak out too
Yeah.
after I shared the rough draft, the first one.
Yes,
That I
and
found was amazing.
you were the first one too. And so you kind of pioneered the group though, honestly, because
Mhm.
most groups they're more like me where I work better on a deadline. I'll put something off for 6 weeks and the last 2 days before something's due is when I hustle and get it done. The last few groups kind of worked more that way. But because you showed up and you had that draft ready, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do a read through. Everyone's like, whoa, wait a minute. We're supposed to have that ready. Like, well, no, it's fine. But that kind of kicked everything into gear, which
Mhm.
then turned out that we had more practice time and we got to be in person thanks to you and Erica for hosting space.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Great
Yeah.
ladies to have met, and I hope to continue those friendships.
Yeah. Oh, I think it will. I think just from reading the comments on our groups and things that I don't think these friendships are going anywhere. I think everyone's there to root each other on,
Mhm.
you know. So let me ask you this before we go. Um, if somebody, how do I want to phrase this question even? There's a lot of people out here who don't believe that there's anything on the other side. Right? They feel like when you die, that's it. It's black, nothing, which is similar to what Erica said about her dad, what he thought. You know, what would you share with them to give them a little bit of hope that there is a lot more out there?
Of learning to step back and be more silent. Turn off the television, turn off the telephone, put it down, and you're going to hear things that you can't hear otherwise because our world is so busy and moving so fast.
Yeah.
It took me to lay down in a bed for 6 months to be silent because I was a type A. person. And boy, did my charts change after that. And to be able to hear and understand and listen. There are messages out there for all of us if we just take the time and the quietness to listen. And they're beautiful.
And I think just to your point, when we get still and we listen and we open our eyes and pay attention to what's around us and what we're being shown, and then just, yeah, that's what I have found since kind of awakening myself, that when I see certain things, there's a reason for it. Like, oh, okay, all right, I think that's my mom telling me a little something, or that's my dad coming, or my grandma, or somebody, and just paying attention to those things.
I've had fun through the years of friends I've known for many years, and when they found out about me, which I didn't tell a lot of people, they were starting to experience things later. And they'd come to me and say, "You won't believe this." And I'll just sit there and smile and say, "Yes, I do."
Uh-huh. Yes. Oh, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Kathy. So real quick, where can everyone get your book, The Mystic Chaplain?
It's out on Amazon.com.
Okay.
And it's The Mystic Chaplain, My Story by Kathy Collins.
Awesome. Go out and get that book. Thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you for having me, Wendy.
Awesome. All right, everyone. So stay tuned. Here's Kathy's one story.
Your story matters, don't let it fade. When everything changed, you were made.
When everything changed, I was attending a seminar in Chicago in 2010, put on by David Kessler, writer, author, world-renowned expert on death, dying, and grief. He was also promoting his newest book, Visions, Trips, and Crowded Rooms, Who and What We See Before We Die. Now here I am, a woman from the corporate business world, in a crowded room of doctors, nurses, and social workers. Now, they were there mostly to be able to get their continuing professional education credits. I didn't need any of those credits, but I sure wanted David Kessler's new book. And you're probably wondering, why did I pick a seminar with such an uplifting topic? Well, let me take you along on my LSD journey, and I'll bring you up to speed. In 1994, I was diagnosed with cancer. And my first trip to the emergency room, I had a near-death experience. To say my life changed at that moment is an understatement. But like David Kessler's new book, I began to experience visions, trips, and crowded rooms. Now, chaos in the ER that day had an energy all of its own, as 3 doctors worked feverishly on me. And I, on the other hand, was experiencing a silence, the kind you have just before a tornado hits. You know, when the leaves on the trees stop moving and the birds stop singing, and nature braces for what's about to happen. And I buckled up, because I began to feel a vibrational frequency around me that sounded like the wings of a hummingbird that's in flight. And as that vibrational frequency increased, I went out of my body. Now, I was able to continue to see everything and hear everything that was going on in that ER room. But it was like I was watching a movie. Nobody gave me the title or who the actors were, and frankly, I didn't care. But at the same time, I could still feel this vibrational frequency around me. And something so loving and so protective was holding me. And while it held me, I could hear the beat of a heart, and it wasn't mine. Now, eventually I came back into my body. And at that moment, a young ER doctor who initially met me when I came to the ER room and got me set up, came into the room. And he asked, "Can I help you with anything?" Well, I was bald and my head was cold. And he brought over a gooseneck lamp and put it over my head. And so I could feel the warmth. And he left the room. Eventually, I was stabilized. And when they sent me home with a sentence of being bedridden for 6 months. Now, in my bedroom, I called it the cell. And for the next 6 months, I talked about and thought about that young ER doctor so many, many times, mostly because I never got his name, and I was never able to truly thank him properly for that kind gesture he did with the lamp over my head. I also had an unseen form of energy in my room. I called it my cellmate. Its real name was awareness. And awareness was teaching me the importance of oneness and how we are all connected through the heart. Not just one person to another like a husband and wife or two good friends. I'm talking about everybody and everything created in this world and the next. At the end of my 6 months and a clean bill of health, I took a thank you basket to the clinic. And the head nurse that day asked me if I'd be willing to talk to a woman who just came in for her first chemo treatment. And she had the same fast-growing cancer that I did. And she was frightened to death. I went into the chemo room, sat down with her, and we started to talk. And there was somebody sitting on the other side of her that kept leaning forward and leaning in and listening to what we were talking about. Well, when it happened for the third time, I stopped. Now, I'm terrible with remembering people's names, but I never forget a face. I made eye contact with that person, and I said, "I know you." And the person responded back, "Yes, I was the emergency room doctor when you first came in, and this is my wife." Now, to understand this, I experienced energy, frequency, and vibration. Scientists say these are the three basic components to understanding the building blocks of our universe. Well, I'm no scientist by any stretch of the imagination, but that unseen form of energy was making sure that I would see and experience many of its teachings. And some of the lessons and the events were exciting. And all of my experiences I recorded in a journal that happened to me. I wanted more, much more. So much so, it was like an addiction. In time, I learned to meditate. And while meditating, I began to see colors. And those colors would come at me like blobs in a lava lamp, if you remember those. And I learned that each color has its own frequency and vibration as well, and that all colors are capable of healing and creating well-being when they connect with the energy centers of our own bodies. In time, those blobs became the shape of hearts, and hearts would come at me in many different ways. One example is I went to an event where they were raffling off a queen-size quilt. And when I saw it, it was so beautiful. And at that moment, all four sides of the quilt started to shimmer like stars in a night sky. And I again heard the pulse of a heartbeat. I turned to someone that was standing fairly close to me, and I asked them if they could see it. They politely said no and moved away from me. I continued to watch it, and I had an epiphany that was so strong that I knew I was going to win that quilt, and I did. And when I got it home, I saw on the back of the quilt, in the same places that it shimmered on the front, that the ladies who made it quilted hearts. Now, in 2006, I had a prophetic vision. I was in a crowded classroom, and all the students were wearing magnificently colored clothing, colors that are on our earth that we know of, and colors that are not of this earth. And in the front of the classroom was a tall, bright white stone table, and behind it stood a man, tall, with bright, beautiful white hair, wearing a white narrow-collared shirt and black trousers. He came out from behind that table and down the row, and I was the last person in the row. And when he stood before me, he embraced me. That was the end of the vision, and I didn't get it. But I knew it was significant, and I put it in my journal. Now, I sought long and hard for many years why these things were happening to me, as many people that have near-death experiences will do. And it's important that they search and question everything. But one of the things that come up the most on a lot of us is that we wonder, since we were brought back onto the earth, what is our purpose? And I can assure you that the purpose will find you. People that have near-death experiences are afraid to tell other people, especially those closest to them, because more often than not, those that are close to them are not able to comprehend what they've gone through. And it's even harder for an even more elderly person, because they are fearful of telling their children for fear that they'll put them in a nursing home. And 65% of marriages end in divorce when one of the partners has a near-death experience. Now, when we've had a near-death experience, we come back changed because we've walked between two worlds. It took me many years before I would tell anybody what happened to me. And when I was ready, they asked me not to talk about it. And because of that, I sought out psychics, tarot card readers, spiritual painter, and a shaman. I attended numerous seminars with well-known speakers, Deepak Chopra, Greg Braden, Dolores Cannon, neurosurgeon Dr. Eben Alexander, and David Kessler, just to name a few. Now, this brings us right up to being in Chicago in 2010 at David Kessler's seminar. When he started the afternoon portion of his seminar, I had a profound knowing come over me, and I knew that I would be working with people that transitioned over. I didn't know how, I didn't know when. How could I? I had worked in the corporate business world for 35 plus years. 5 years later, January of 2015, I went to visit my mother in the nursing home. And the nursing home chaplain came by and asked if she could sit down and join us. And while we talked, she shared how she left her nursing career to become a hospital chaplain. And at that moment, my heart fluttered in my chest in a way I didn't think it was possible to do. It left me euphoric, and I heard the words, "You can do this." I didn't think so. But the next month, I applied for chaplaincy program, and I didn't think I'd have a chance in Hades to get into it, but I gave it a shot without even having a divinity degree. I wrote out the application, I wrote my life history, attached it, and submitted it. And for the rest of the time, I questioned and doubted myself many, many times. And I heard that voice again each time I questioned it. You can do this. 4 months had gone by, and I heard nothing. It's now June, and I'm getting ready to retire. And 2 days before I'm to retire, I got a phone call to come in for that interview. Well, I went early, and I waited in the waiting room. And while I was waiting, I saw an elevator door open up, and this tall man with bright white hair stepped out. And at that moment, my heart again fluttered in my chest. Only this time I knew it was speaking to me. And as he walked through, he waved at me like he knew me, and he continued on. As it got close to the time for my interview, he came back, and he's walking towards me. And when he gets up to me, he introduces himself, and he apologizes to me for waving at me because he said, "I thought I knew you, but I was mistaken." He walked me to the interview room, and I met the head supervisor, and all three of us sat down together. The head supervisor interviewed me for over an hour, and when he was finished, he said, "Kathy, I can't classify you with any one particular religion. I need to call you a mystic Well, I've been called a lot of things in my lifetime, but that was never one of them. Then the white-haired man started interviewing me. And I started making eye contact with him and listening to what he had to say. And then I realized, I do know this man, but from where? And my mind was going 1,000 miles a minute to try and figure it out. And when I did, I'm sitting in front of this man with the white narrow-collared shirt and the black trousers that I saw in my vision 9 years before. Only thing different is this time he had a secular collar on. And when he was finished interviewing to me, he let me know there's no guarantee that I would get in because they were still interviewing candidates. I was okay with that because I really was grateful that they even considered me. Three months later, I was accepted into the chaplaincy program. My teacher and mentor was the tall man with the beautiful white hair. And when I finished my studies and my training, our class asked him to join us for pizza so that we could enjoy our celebration. When we came out of the restaurant that night, onto the sidewalk, we ended up lining up in a row. And he came down that row, and I was the last one in the row. And when he stood in front of me and congratulated me, he embraced me. The entire prophetic vision of 9 years earlier was complete. I no longer believe in coincidences, but I do believe in synchronicity because everything happens for a reason. And I was so grateful that I recorded everything that happened to me in my journal. Because 2 years after becoming a hospital chaplain, my book, The Mystic Chaplain, My Story, was published. Now, if anybody had told me 9 years ago that I would be a chaplain, write a book, and a publisher would pick it up, I would have been rolling on the floor in hysterical laughter. None of these things were on my radar of wanting to do in this lifetime. One of the joys of my job is when a person codes and the medical staff revives them. And I have a chance to be with them afterwards. And when I talk with them, somewhere along the line, I'll ask, did you take a trip today? And they'll respond very surprised as well. How did you know to ask me that question? I open a door for them to come in, sit down, and feel safe and share their event and to let them know that they're not losing their mind and that what happened to them is real. And I ask them to cherish the cosmic gift of love they were given because it is a language that only comes through the heart in which we are all one with this world and the next. And we are connected with an infinitely powerful form of energy. I continue to walk alongside my patients when they're at a time of need, whether it's for illness or if they want me to hold their hand when they take their last breath in this earth. I no longer am afraid to share my story, nor do I fear what anybody thinks about it. And I continue to trust and listen to my heart's messages as to where it sends me and directs me. This is my LSD journey of love, service, and direction. Thank you.